The little girl clutched her worn-out doll tightly, her tiny body trembling as she stood on the auction block, her eyes wide and fearful searched the crowd, but all she saw were strangers who whispered about her as if she were nothing more than property. Her voice cracked as she cried out, "No one wants to adopt me," her words echoing in the dusty hall. The cold wind of the autumn morning carried her sobs across the empty barn, a cruel reminder that she was alone in a world that seemed to have no place for her. Among the gathered crowd, the faces were hardened and indifferent except one towering figure leaning against the barn door. His coat was rough, boots dusty from years on the trail, and his eyes carried a quiet storm of sorrow and strength. He watched the girl not with judgment but with a deep unspoken understanding. Memories of his own lost childhood tugged at his heart, and for the first time in years he felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope that maybe he could change a life. The auctioneer's gavel pounded relentlessly, selling animals and trinkets as if they held the same weight as a human heart. The girl flinched at each call, shrinking further into herself, wishing invisibility was possible. The murmurs of the crowd became a wave of despair that threatened to drown her tiny spirit. She glanced at the man at the doorway, the only one who didn't look away, and for a fleeting second she dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, someone saw her worth. The rich cowboy pushed off from the doorway, his boots crunching against the wooden floor, and made his way to the auction block. Whispers followed him. No one expected a man of his stature and wealth to intervene. He didn't smile, didn't ask questions, he merely knelt down to the girl's level. "You don't belong here," he said gently, his deep voice steady yet soft enough to calm her quivering heart. She blinked, unable to process the kindness coming from someone who seemed so untouchable. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she tried to speak, but no words came. The cowboy extended his hand, not as a buyer but as someone offering safety. He didn't see a commodity, he saw a frightened little girl who deserved love. The crowd murmured, confused and scandalized, but he ignored them. All that mattered was her trembling fingers inching toward his outstretched hand. In that moment a bridge of trust formed between two broken souls, fragile but unyielding. "What's your name, little one?" he asked, his eyes warm yet piercing, as if searching for the truth buried beneath layers of fear. "Lily," she whispered, barely audible, her voice fragile as porcelain. The cowboy nodded, committing her name to memory like a promise. "Lily, you're coming with me," he said, not asking but declaring, a tone that left no room for negotiation. For the first time she felt a sense of belonging, a fragile thread pulling her out of the darkness. The auctioneer sputtered, furious at being ignored, but the cowboy's presence silenced any protest. People in the room exchanged looks of disbelief, muttering about wealth and whims, but Lily didn't care. Her eyes followed him as he guided her out of the barn, each step away from the gavel's pounding, a step closer to safety. She dared to hope, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years, that someone could truly see her, protect her and love her without condition. Outside, the crisp air filled her lungs with a sense of freedom she didn't know existed. The cowboy mounted his horse, Lily clinging to him as if he were a lifeline. Dust swirled around them as they rode away from the auction, away from judgment, away from cruelty. He glanced down at her, seeing the mix of fear and wonder in her eyes. "You're safe now," he said simply, and for the first time she believed it. His strength and kindness wrapped around her like a shield against the world. They reached his ranch just as the sun began to dip behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. The air smelled of pine and earth, a stark contrast to the suffocating barn she had left behind. The cowboy led her inside, where warmth and quiet comfort awaited. The house was large but lived in, filled with reminders of a life shaped by resilience and solitude. Here she felt maybe she could finally breathe, maybe she could finally belong. Days passed and Lily slowly began to adjust to her new life. The cowboy never forced affection, he simply offered presence, safety and gentle guidance. He taught her how to care for the animals, how to ride and how to believe in herself. She watched him silently, noticing his routines, his quiet acts of kindness and the scars that life had left on him. Slowly, walls she had built around her heart began to crumble brick by brick under the weight of unwavering care. Yet not everything was easy. Lily's past clung to her like shadows, moments when fear would grip her and tears would flow uncontrollably. Sometimes she ran to the barn whispering to the animals about her loneliness, and sometimes she would sit silently staring out the window, wondering why she had been abandoned. The cowboy always found her, offering comfort without words, proving that actions often spoke louder than promises. His presence became her anchor in the storm of uncertainty. One evening a distant relative appeared at the ranch, claiming rights to Lily and threatening to take her away. Fear clawed at her chest as she realized the world outside her newfound sanctuary could still hurt her. The cowboy stood tall, unyielding, and refused to let them near her. A tense standoff ensued, filled with threats and accusations, but his unwavering determination radiated a message message no one would harm this child while he lived. Lily clung to him, her tears mixing with relief and disbelief. That night as stars blanketed the sky, Lily finally slept without fear for the first time in years. The cowboy sat outside staring into the fire, contemplating the twists of fate that had brought her to him. His heart, long guarded against pain, had softened in ways he hadn't imagined. Saving her had saved him too, igniting emotions he had buried beneath layers of solitude. In the quiet of the night, two broken souls began to heal, connected by love, trust, and unspoken promises. But life was far from predictable. Rumors spread in the nearby town about the girl and the wealthy cowboy, stirring curiosity and judgment. Some admired his bravery, others whispered envy and suspicion. Lily felt the weight of attention pressing upon her fragile shoulders, unsure how to navigate a world that now watched her closely. Yet she found courage in the cowboy's quiet support, learning that love often required facing challenges head-on even when the world seemed ready to pull you apart. Morning sun spilled across the ranch, painting golden light over the fields. Lily woke with a sense of excitement and fear intertwined. She knew today might bring new challenges, but for the first time she felt a spark of courage that had been buried deep inside her. Small hands clutched the cowboy hat left by her protector, and she smiled at the warmth it seemed to carry, as if his strength followed her into every corner of the house. The cowboy entered the kitchen humming softly, and Lily froze for a moment, her heart fluttering at the sound. He looked down at her and nodded silently, as if asking permission to start the day together. She nodded, and they shared a quiet moment where no words were necessary, just the understanding that their bond was unbreakable and that the world outside no longer mattered when they had each other. News of the girl and the cowboy spread through the town quickly, but instead of fear, judgment brought curiosity. People whispered, but the cowboy ignored them, focusing only on creating a safe space for Lily. She learned to laugh freely, to run in the fields, to feed the animals, and to trust that the kindness she was experiencing was not temporary but permanent, a feeling she had never dared to imagine before. One afternoon a storm approached the ranch, dark clouds rolling across the mountains. Lily watched the trees bend in the wind and fear gripped her heart, but the cowboy held her tightly, showing her how to stay safe in the shelter of the barn. Together they braved the wind and rain, and in that moment Lily realized that courage could grow when someone stood beside you through the fiercest of storms. Days turned into weeks and Lily began to show remarkable bravery. She tended to the animals alone, rode horses without hesitation, and spoke confidently to the few visitors who came to the ranch. Her laughter echoed through the fields, her voice no longer trembling but strong and confident. The cowboy watched quietly, proud of the little girl who was slowly becoming a young lady filled with hope and light. One evening as the sky blushed pink and orange, the cowboy sat by the fire and Lily approached holding her doll. He smiled at her and she whispered how grateful she was for everything, for saving her, for teaching her, for being her family. The cowboy simply nodded, knowing that no words could capture the depth of what they had built together, a bond stronger than any fear or loneliness they had ever faced. Trouble came once more when a group of men tried to challenge the ownership of the ranch, claiming lies and old debts. Lily felt panic rising, but the cowboy stood firm, and she realized that strength could protect love. That night the men left defeated, unable to break the peace that had been built through courage, patience, and unwavering care. The ranch was safe, and so was Lily, her trust in the cowboy now absolute and unshakable. The following days were filled with joy and normalcy. Lily explored every corner of the ranch, laughing with the animals, running through the fields, and sharing secrets with the cowboy. Each moment built memories that replaced the shadows of her past, and each smile reminded her that she was no longer alone. She learned that love could heal and that every scar she carried could turn into strength. Seasons changed and Lily grew into a confident, spirited girl full of dreams and laughter. The cowboy taught her everything he knew about the land, the animals, and life itself, but he also allowed her space to discover who she was outside of the shadow of fear. They built a home together filled with warmth, love, and trust, a sanctuary where the past no longer dictated their future. One sunny morning the town celebrated a festival and the cowboy brought Lily along. She held his hand tightly, smiling at the people she had once feared. She waved and laughed freely, unafraid of whispers or judgment, and everyone could see that the little girl who once cried on the auction block had transformed into a radiant presence full of hope and joy. The cowboy watched with pride, knowing he had saved not just her life but her spirit. As twilight descended, the cowboy and Lily walked to the hill overlooking the ranch. The sky was painted with purples, pinks, and golds. Lily leaned against him, feeling safe and cherished. She whispered a promise to herself to always remember where she came from and to never take the love she had found for granted. The cowboy kissed her forehead gently and they stood in silence, feeling complete. Life at the ranch settled into a happy rhythm filled with laughter, work, and love. Lily thrived, surrounded by the people and animals who had become her family. She no longer feared abandonment or judgment. Instead, she carried confidence, compassion, and the knowledge that she was worthy of happiness and protection. The Cowboy remained her steadfast guardian and guide, teaching her not just survival but how to live fully. One special morning the cowboy surprised Lily with a small garden she could call her own. She planted flowers, vegetables and herbs under his watchful eyes. Her joy was uncontainable as the first seeds sprouted, reminding her that growth could come from patience, care and love. Just like her own life, she had blossomed in the warmth of trust and safety, a living testament to resilience and hope. As the sun set on the ranch, painting golden light over the hills, Lily and the cowboy sat together watching the animals play and the wind dance through the fields. She rested her head on his shoulder, smiling, knowing that no one would ever take her away again. She had found love, family and a home, and the shadows of the past had been replaced by endless light and laughter. Their journey had begun with tears but ended in a happiness deeper than either of them had ever imagined.